Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you from whichever region or time zone you are joining us today. And a very, very warm welcome to this Peer Review Week 2025 panel hosted by Asian Council of Science Editors. My name is Maryam Sayab, Director of Communication at ACSE and co-chair of Peer Review Week. It's truly a pleasure to be moderating today's panel discussion, Publisher Perspective, focusing the topic of this year's theme of Peer Review Week, Rethinking Peer Review in the AI Era. We all know that artificial intelligence is transforming the whole around us and the peer review itself, the backbone of scholarly publishing. When we come to peer review, it's no exception. So we have to look at it, is it a game changer, a governance channel, or perhaps both? So today we have invited four leading representative organizations, major publishing houses that have taken bold step in experimenting with AI, how to use, how to avoid the risk and opportunities. And they will be bringing unique perspective on opportunities, risk, and the future of trust in science. Before we dive in, let me just briefly introduce our panelists for today that will be speaking with us. Firstly, we have Lucy from Emerald Publishing. She is peer review lead at Emerald Publishing. Lucy has been pioneering Emerald peer review strategy, focusing on inclusivity and exploring how AI can support more equitably publishing practices. Next, we have Zhou with us, Senior Director of AI Product and Innovation at Wiley. Hong, I think, doesn't need an introduction. He's well known across the industry for shaping Wiley's AI ethics principle and for spearheading award-winning AI-driven tools, including paper mills detection solutions. Joining us as well, our next panelist is Simone from Frontiers, Research Integrity Portfolio Manager at Frontiers. Simone leads investigations into large-scale misconducts and is at the forefront for embedding trust, transparency, and now AI into collaborative peer review models. And finally, Daniel Stuckey from Elsevier, who heads an investigative integrity team at Elsevier with a background spanning both editorial leadership at The Lancet, biomedicine and biomedical research, Dan now works on governance framework for responsible Gen AI use. So this is all set, the four panelists from four major publisher side. So to begin, I want to ask one question to my fellow panelists. Artificial intelligence is often called as a double-edged sword when it comes to peer review. So from your perspective as a publisher, what is the single biggest opportunity and the single biggest risk that you see right now with integrating AI into peer review? I want to start it with Lucy's opinion.
Thank you so much for having me. So when I think of what the single biggest opportunity is, and this is something I'm going to be talking about quite a lot today, it's equity. Some of the rhetoric around the popularization and increased access to AI tools focuses on the notion of fairness. And that is central to diversity, equity, inclusion practices. We're seeing a lot of conversations around AI, about how we can use AI to increase diversity in peer review and in published research. What I'm really hoping is that these conversations go beyond just talk, and that publishers use new tools such as AI to consider where they can put policies into place that hold them accountable to deliver greater diversity and opportunities in the research that they're publishing, the researchers that they're working with, and who they platform. In terms of the biggest risk, I would say replacing human subject matter experts with non-subject matter expert tools. I think human oversight is the key thing here. We want to embrace innovation and make authors, reviewers, editors' lives easier, but their subject matter expertise provides the scrutiny and credibility of the research that they're working on, and they make sure that we can trust it. So ultimately, we need really strict peer review guardrails and policies that we're transparent about, so that the tools that we're testing, we can actually trust the outputs that they're producing.
Perfect. So how about you, Hong?
Right. Last year, I also talk about the double-edged sword Last year I mentioned I focused on, the positive side is AI can be used to detect the integrity issues. And on the other hand, the AI also used to create all this, the fake content, fake information, which become harder and harder to spot. But this year, I think is the scope of this be expanded. I think the opportunity now is speed with quality. So the peer review today is, as we all know, struggle with the reviewers shortage and raising the misconduct, and AI can help on the both front. So tools have already screened for the plagiarism, image manipulation, data issues, or even detect paper mill patterns at scale. So they also accelerate the review matching, which not only improve the efficiency, but also help diversify the reviewer pools. So this is not theoretical; it's happening now across the many publishing platform. So the biggest risk for me is the erosion of the trust AI. If AI is used, is not transparent or misapplied. So the reviewers and editor may rely on the AI output, or conversely, they mistrust that. So the weakening the oversight and transparency. I think but the most important things, the double edge is clear. So AI can strengthen the peer review, as Lucy said, but only if it's used responsibly and transparently.
How do you see it, Simone?
I'll actually leave with my risk so I can end on a positive. Yeah, similarly, I do see potential for a sort of concerning future, I suppose, where if we have such over-reliance on AI that we have very little human involvement in the process at all. So if we have the AI sort of designs the study, AI writes the study, a different AI then maybe does like the legwork, the huge amount of the review process, and then post-publication, AI is already summarizing that literature for the readers. And so without knowing it, you can get this process where there's very little human involvement at all. And I think the risk there is that any inaccuracies or misinformation or errors that creep in, they could really spread unchecked. And the real world harm in that is that we're getting this low evidence decision making because we're adding scientific weight to something that, didn't have that human oversight. And all of that will erode trust over time in that scientific process. And think on one hand that might seem quite of an extreme version that we'd have that happen with such little human oversight, but it's more the sort of creep effect that I worry about. I think there's already AI that's being used in the mainstream, and if we're too slow with enforcing that transparency and accountability and policy that the other panelists have already mentioned, then we'll get this sort of gradual pollution of papers that we're seeing, and we'll have that feet of clay situation again, where by the time we see issues and errors, it's only the tip of the iceberg. And I think that's very similar to what we've seen with the proliferation of paper mill content, is that we didn't get safeguards in quick enough, and then we're starting to see that pollution of the literature. So I think there's the trust aspect that really needs to be most important. And then on the flip side, for the opportunity, if it's done really well, I think we could see a world where AI and humans, really work really well together. We have an AI role that is really clear. It's sort of helping with scalability and that pattern recognition, which humans are not necessarily always good at. And then we have that equal weight on the human role where we're not using AI as a shortcut, but we're seeing it for, supporting our decision making, freeing up time for critical judgment. We're applying our own guardrails to the AI, and it's adding context. So then we'll have the positive outcome that we're talking about, where we've got a really global and fair, continuous peer review process that's, stronger. And then that AI stamp is a bit more about the trust. We're happy that this was AI checked and supported by AI. We're not thinking, oh, what does that mean? Does that mean it was like less high quality, essentially? So those were my.
All right, so coming to you then, how do you see this picture in terms of risk or opportunity?
Yeah, so speaking as a former editor and husband to an academic, I'm acutely aware that the current peer review system is under a huge amount of strain. So securing experts who are willing to dedicate time and effort to the process and deliver good quality comments is an ongoing challenge. So I think one of the biggest opportunities with integrating AI into peer review is the potential to dramatically improve the efficiency and consistency of the process. So AI can help identify suitable reviewers and streamline admin tasks, and flag potential ethical issues. So as Hong mentioned, an AI-supported image forensics tool might identify a figure in a submitted manuscript that appears in multiple publications, or a plagiarism tool might detect text overlap across a number of previously published articles. And both situations would be very difficult to spot manually, and certainly not at the speed that these trained tools are able to operate. So yeah, such an AI-assisted pre-screening step would help editors quickly identify problematic submissions and ensure that only manuscripts meeting certain ethical and technical standards proceed to peer review. And this would save valuable time for editors and reviewers and allow them both to concentrate on the science, which is the important bit. But one of the most pressing risks I feel relates to privacy. So when a reviewer receives a manuscript, the unpublished research must be treated as a confidential document. So reviewers should not upload any part into an external AI tool, as this may violate the author's confidentiality rights. And yeah, this confidentiality requirement also extends to the peer review report, as this may also contain confidential information about the manuscript or the authors. The privacy policies of many AI providers lack transparency as well about where the data is stored, who has access to the data, and how long it will be retained. And so if these documents are uploaded to an external LLM, this leaves potentially sensitive information at risk of being processed and shared without author consent. So this may breach data protection laws. Yeah. Furthermore, should the names of the reviewers or the authors associated with the manuscript be exposed, this would undermine the anonymity of the peer review process as well. So certain steps must be taken by journals to ensure AI use is compliant with privacy laws and author confidentiality rights.
Perfect. So thank you all of you for setting the scene for the opening thoughts very well. So moving forward, let's turn into some practical experiences where we can learn that how and what each of your organization is doing with AI in peer review. I want to start with Lucy. Emerald emphasizes inclusivity and community. So how can AI-driven peer review systems support greater equity for authors and from underrepresented regions and disciplines?
So I'm going to take us through a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of different peer review offerings so that we can cover what opportunities for equity appear in each of these. Because I think when we talk about peer review systems and things like that, it means different things to everyone. So we'll start with reviewer tools, and they're really commonly used for recommending subject matter experts based on an input abstract, short section of text, full manuscript. There's a lot of different reviewer tools that are available, and many popular tools are AI driven. One of the best things that reviewer tools can do is identify and recommend experts from a wider demographic than editors might first consider. So for example, when I was doing an analysis of common reviewer tools on the market earlier this year, I found that in over 60% of recommendations, the recommended experts were either not already actively reviewing on the given journals, or they weren't part of the journal's existing review pool. So that means that tools can provide editors with a much larger group of experts to consider, and it's repeatedly challenging editors to diversify their reviewer pools. In-house publishing teams can then take that data from reviewer pools and compare it to journals' behaviour to see exactly where journals should invest in diversifying their network and help them commit to actual concrete equity goals. So that's reviewer tools. We move on to tools that are generating summaries. These sometimes are integrated in the evaluation process just before peer review. They help editors screen manuscripts for suitability to journals. These summaries often focus on the novelty of the manuscript, and they promote that front and centre. It means that editors are aware of this and the potential of the paper is stressed. And it might mean that editors are more focused on, more inclined to say, like, oh, we could develop the paper this way, rather than focusing on, say, the language or the structure of the paper, which can be addressed during revisions. So while the diluting of research into a generated summary is maybe oversimplistic at times, it can really also provide a level playing field because it strips the paper down to its core and its promise. And then if we look at more kind of complex AI-driven evaluation tools that go beyond summaries, that generate comments on the quality of the paper, possible areas of improvement, are probably our closest thing to AI reviews. As part of my role at Emerald, I've been meeting with developers to understand how these tools work, why they're designed that way, how they can be implemented. And in a lot of these meetings, these tools are programmed. I've been told that a lot of these tools are programmed so that they find ways to improve the manuscript rather than rejecting it as a default. And I think that challenges the way that standard peer review sometimes operates. We can get extremely negative reviews, as a standard. So if we're always looking to improve things, I think that can give us a much more kind of balanced opinion. Obviously, if a paper has really kind of glaring flaws, the editors will detect this anyway. But the tool could create opportunities for editors and publishers to consider what good research actually looks like beyond their usual network. All of this huge caveat, obviously, is that any opportunity for equity depends on how we implement tools. So if a publisher or editors don't research AI-driven tools, they could adopt a tool that does the opposite of what I've just spoken about and actively excludes authors from underrepresented regions and disciplines. And that's why transparency is really important in what we're doing. Authors deserve to know how their work will be evaluated, by who, so that they can make an informed decision on where they submit their research.
Perfect, Lucy. Thank you for sharing your point. I want to move here to Hong. Hong, Wiley has had a chance to test AI in different editorial workflows. So what lessons have you learned about where AI adds value versus where it creates more complexity?
Right, yeah, indeed. So Wiley is not only to test the AI tools across different editorial workflow, we also already integrated all these AI tools in the research exchange platform. It's the latest, the editorial workflow as a platform. And so we have learned AI adds the most value in high value, repetitive, and pattern recognition tasks. Things like the integrity screening, reviewer suggestion, or the triage of the out-scope submission, etc. And also the metadata extraction. These are our areas where the AI does the heavy lifting. So the free editors, reviewers, and to focus on the judgment. For example, the AI, the paper mail, the detection service we released last year is already, automatically the screening the the manuscript every day. So saving the editors significant time. But where the complexity arises, I think, is in the areas required context, ethics, or domain expertise, because AI is still, the growing, and then the still lack the knowledge, lack the real world knowledge, and the domain specific knowledge. So and also lack of the the critical thinking, etc. is improved dramatically, but still not there. So determine whether, for example, a methodology is novel, or whether the findings are significant, or this is some gap. Still, they require human expertise. So editor also want to transparency, because that's where the trust comes from. So why with this reviewer, for example, why this reviewer suggested, was this paper is flagged as issues? So without explainability, the trust the breakdown. Another lesson I just also want to emphasize is AI adoption. It's not just about tools and technology, but about the ecosystem and beyond this. For example, training, policy, and even UI, user interface, and the user experience. Also, is as important as model. Sometimes, the AI tools there, but people just don't have enough knowledge to apply it at the right time and in the right way. And also they don't know how to use it properly because the UI is not there. Yeah, that's all from my side.
Thanks, Hong, for sharing both the promises and fiction. And moving forward, building on that, Simone, from Frontier side, Frontier has been known for its collaborative and transparent peer review model. So how does AI fit into your review model without undermining trust?
Thanks. Yeah. Frontiers has a collaborative peer review platform. So that platform allows authors and reviewers to engage directly in their online discussion. So that model kind of supports that accountability and trust aspect. effect that Hong was mentioning, because there's that open interaction between authors and reviewers and chief editors. Reviewers know that their contributions are visible to everyone, and so we can see those interactions happening in real time. So there's that sort of traceability and accountability there. We publish the reviewer names and the editor names on the articles as well. So that comes back to that point of accountability really being key in making sure that AI is used safely. So we're also integrating additional AI tools on top of that. So that part has sort of the transparency and the accountability aspect. And then we have developed our own AI tool called Ira, which was launched in 2018. And that's integrated into the peer review process in sort of two key ways. So we have Ira Review Guide, which is still in live testing at present, but this is a tool where reviewers can ask for supporting questions and get guidance on how to improve their review report. So the idea is to improve that quality output for the reviewer reports. And then we also have IRA, which is supporting the research integrity team with their integrity checks. And that's been working alongside our RI team and has been screening every paper since 2018 for integrity aspects. And we build upon that and the things that it checks for all the time. So it's there to free the team up from those repetitive tasks so they can focus on that complex judgment and that context and add that sort of critical oversight. And then also spot those kind of large scale patterns that the human eye might miss, as I was mentioning before. But in both those cases, the bit that I would say is adding the trust is because AI is a support tool. So it's not a replacement, it's not a shortcut. We still have a large team of 65 research integrity experts. So they're not getting smaller, they're even expanding. And that's kind of key to the point that AI is not supposed to be this shortcut where you're using it to take away sort of that human oversight. It's supposed to be a collaboration. And I think that's what good collaboration between AI and humans looks like. It's both of you working sort of at equal efforts to make sure it's effective. And in both of those cases, they're continually monitored. We adapt and make sure we're applying those safeguards. We're seeing how they're used, that kind of UI point that Hong was talking about. So because they're publisher-led, we can make sure that it sees, has that oversight and it's trusted and we can see how it's used. And I think that's really key to anyone that's kind of exploring leveraging AI for peer review.
Perfect, Simone. That also raises the important questions around trust in integrating AI with peer review. So moving forward towards Dan, Elsevier has invested heavily in AI-driven solutions in research integrity. So what are the most effective governance frameworks we can say you have found for responsible AI use when it comes to peer review process?
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting question. So Elsevier has actually been using AI to support some aspects of peer review for quite some time. So, for example, reviewer recommendations we provide to editors and journal recommendations we offer authors to match their paper to a journal. Both benefit from AI assistance. So we've also dedicated considerable resources into developing and testing research integrity tools, such as AI-based solutions to identify plagiarized content and image integrity tools that can detect anomalies in images across the scholarly record. The aim is for the technology to be used to improve the quality of manuscripts that are then sent to peer review, and to identify and rectify issues before publication. That said, the technology has gone hand in hand with the expansion of our research integrity team and editorial teams as well. And our research integrity team is 80 strong at the moment, and we're continuing to recruit. And this is because human assessment is absolutely necessary. So to guide the use of AI at Elsevier, we have a set of responsible AI principles that are publicly available. So these principles ensure that we ask ourselves who might be impacted from what we build and why. They promote fairness and non-discrimination and minimize bias. They prescribe that every user should be able to understand and trust the output of what we build. They specify that humans always have the ownership and accountability over the outcomes of AI systems. And they state that we apply strong data governance in accordance with all applicable laws. So Elsevier's GenAI policy was launched in 2023 and aligned to our responsible AI principles that I've just described. So we don't currently allow AI to be used directly by reviewers. our reviewer AI policy focuses on protecting authors' rights and keeping the manuscript confidential. But we have a cross-departmental team and a Gen AI policy development manager who continually monitor ongoing developments in the AI space, and will adjust or refine the policies as deemed appropriate. So in the other part of your question, to answer that, in terms of cross-publisher governance frameworks for responsible AI use in peer review, there doesn't appear to be a lot of guidance in the community, and what there is rather outdated. So, for example, in December 2023, STM published a white paper titled Ethical and Practical Guidelines for the Use of Gen AI in the Publication Process. And the peer review section states that Gen AI should not be used to create a review of a paper, and that should be done only by the appointed reviewer. COPE hosted a webinar called AI and Peer Review in October 2023, which collated current thinking at that time. And about a year ago, ISTIC developed guidelines for the use of Gen AI content in scholarly and academic publishing that included recommendations for the use of AI in peer review. Although in that document, it states that use should be in accordance with the policies of the reviewing client. So it doesn't provide too much detail there. So given the fast-paced developments in the AI ecosystem, there appears to be a pressing need for more up-to-date guidance, and ideally for industry standards across publishers to be redefined.
Perfect. So thank you for sharing the details for the first round of our questions. I want to move quickly for a little bit of like broader challenge that we see for future direction of using AI and peer review. So what might help us avoid risk and make sure that AI and peer review is more sustainable. So I want to touch with Lucy for you that what safeguards are most important to ensure that both when we apply AI, it doesn't unintentionally reinforce existing biases in peer review. Just a minute.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I had some street noise at just the wrong time. So we absolutely have to have safeguards in place, and those should exist whether you're using an AI tool or not in your peer review process. As you're saying, these are existing biases that we're seeing in peer review, and the introduction of a possible AI tool shouldn't be the first time that publishers are considering them. So we are talking about AI tools, so we'll start with thorough testing. So before a journal or a publisher implements a tool, you should know how it works, how it compares to existing tools, and what potential biases you're finding. So earlier this year, when I was doing some testing across 5 different popular reviewer tools that used AI, I tested them on the same manuscripts, and the tools returned very different results, with 3 of the 5 recommending over 60% of reviewers from North America, Europe, and only really small regions of Eastern Asia. So I knew, okay, those tools return those sorts of results. So I need to compare that to what reviewer and author behavior looks like on Emerald journals, so that I can see the network of researchers that we're working with and who we're excluding. So it's really important to understand what your baseline is as a publisher, as an editor, so you can identify your weak spots in your current peer review systems and see where an AI tool can help you. So most of us have a wealth of data at our journal's fingertips. We've got usually standard reports on peer review behavior, turnaround times, invitation response rates. And so it's really necessary for us to appraise the success of a tool in relation to these and in relation to how we're reducing bias. And usually we can track some elements of that through reporting. Thirdly, and I think this is something that everyone has touched on, we need to train in-house teams on how to recognize bias and what that looks like at different points in the peer review process, not just when we're inviting reviewers, not just when we're assessing manuscripts when they come in for the first time, not just when reviewers are submitting things. Does it look like manuscripts from one region are being prioritized over another? Is it editors primarily accepting papers on a certain topic? Is it demands from reviewers for authors, to always have their work professionally edited, which is something that we see all the time? So like we're knowing your baseline, if you can't detect bias, what are you going to be able to do to stop it from being reinforced? And then finally, those in-house teams, they're being trained on this, but they should also be evaluating the outputs of AI tools regularly. You shouldn't only be testing AI tools and their results prior to implementation only. You have to have a long-term plan to consider and assess the suitability of a given tool. And it's really important with AI tools that are progressing really quickly. You're getting new updates all the time. So with each new feature, you've got to consider what opportunities and risk this tool introduces, and share your findings with each other. As Dan was talking about, it's really important that we're sharing this across publishers, so that we're not just keeping that knowledge to ourselves. It's a lot of these things that we're talking about today affect everyone. So use the wealth of information that's at your fingertips. Research when new tools hit the market, and if we can collectively work on ways to identify and eliminate bias in the peer review process, everyone benefits. So it's really something that where we can have trackable goals, accountable goals, that's where we can make a huge difference.
Perfect. Thank you, Lucy. I really think that with some safeguards, I think it will be essential to use or integrate AI in peer review. Moving forward to Hong, looking at the human side of the peer review process, what early evidence have you seen, positive, maybe negative, and about reviewer adoption or pushbacks when AI is introduced in the review process?
This is a good question. So last year, the Wiley had done a global the survey, which interview or survey over the 5,000 researchers, scholars over the world. And the survey results show the most scholars still prefer human judgment for core evaluative tasks, but they are open to AI as supporting the assistant. And also about 70% they want publisher to get them on the safe and the responsible use. I think we all aware of this. And actually in practice, we see the reviewers welcome, I also talked to many reviewers, and also in the recent the webinars, we see the reviewers welcome the AI that helps the structure the report or check the reference and all polish improve the grammar, all this readability. But they're very, if they feel like AI is replacing their expertise. So this is something. They're also based on the characters recent survey, and the one of the misunderstanding is about many researchers still think AI use equal to the misconduct. So they have the hesitation about this. So the transparency is the key, where we disclose clearly, such as allow AI for polish the report, but require declarations, adoptions improves. So this pushback usually come when the expectations are unclear or when the two are seen as black boxes. So I think this is what we have learned. Yeah. You're mute.
Right. So thank you so much, Hong. And moving to Simone, building on that, what are some of the practical tips for publishers and publishing stakeholders wanting to leverage AI for peer review in a way that safeguards trust?
Thanks. I like this question because I always like to tie it back to something more tangible that publishers can do or the audience can do here. And I can draw on some of the lessons from Frontiers again with IRA. That's been in development for 6 years. So we've got a lot of lessons there. And interestingly, I would say there are different lessons for deploying AI for that sort of integrity misconduct detection versus when you're doing it more for those reviewer tools. So I'm glad Lucy made that distinction there because there are some different lessons on either side. So on the integrity side, I think what's really key is the importance of the right data sets and the right training of that data. So if we take, for example, our paper mill detector, so this is just one aspect of IRA's integrity detection. But when it was first launched, it was trained on quite a small data set of what we were confirmed as paper mill cases. So we're seeing those kind of more obvious paper mill templates where you're seeing the same things occur, and we had quite a high certainty in that data set. But we also know that paper mills adapt quickly. So some of those signals became less reliable as they learned to sort of evade that detection. And then we also started to add papers that our teams of the human element again are seeing on the ground and rejecting for paper mill concerns. But then there's that human interpretation there that you are layering onto that. So there's a risk of sort of noise and bias that comes into that. But what was really key there as a lesson is we were able to pick that up and sort of react to that because we were meeting weekly with our product teams, and we still do this now. We meet weekly to evaluate the effectiveness of those tools. And then that makes sure that we can adapt and, train new algorithms and use more reliable data sets or introduce new techniques. So that's when we started to layer multiple signals together to reduce that risk of bias and noise. And we see a lot of detector tools work like this now, where they have different signals with different weights to sort of build up a picture. And then now we've combined 3 external tools together. So we've got Cactus and Clear Skies also integrated there. But again, that testing and monitoring is continuous. We do it every week. And so anyone, like Lucy has said, when you're exploring these tools, it's a continuous process. You need to check them all the time, and it's not just sort of integrate it and move on. I won't linger on this point too much because we've mentioned a lot about the human oversight and the human interpretation and how the training and policy always needs to come alongside that. Because tech alone isn't enough. Humans have to interpret those signals correctly. And with the paper mill signal, again, when you have that aggregate scoring of all those small signals, even when they're sometimes circumstantial, that together can build up a picture that can potentially sway that human judgment, even if it's not always fair. So our response to that was to then add trust markers and start to add the other side of the picture. So things about that signified trust to build up a full picture of what that looks like with integrity assessment. So again, there's that equal focus on the human engagement and the technical part. And we still monitor how editors are interacting with those tools to make sure it doesn't decline over time and that they're getting the right training needs and things like that. So then on the other side of the coin, when we're looking at reviewer tools, I think those are much harder to monitor and control because you have that more unpredictable element of the user who's not an in-house person. They're not someone where you can mandate training. And the community, like the UI, like Hon mentioned, it's everyone's starting from different playing fields. They have different fundamentals, and we can't assume that everyone is like beginning from the same space. So that transparency is really key. And I think, we see these two different sides. We've got the integrity part where you want the constant monitoring, you have to have close collaboration with your product team, strong data sets, check for bias. And then in the external reviewer support tools, you're needing to look for really community engagement, find out how they're using it, monitor it. With the reviewer guide, we can see what questions are being asked and how they're using that, and they have to disclose, and we're really on top of that. So that's part of that community engagement, making sure that you're not just rolling something out and then leaving it. You have to, always iterate and keep on top of it.
Excellent, Simone. I think that all of the discussion brings us to the bigger question of collective responsibility. So, Dan, from your perspective, what role do you see that publishers are playing in building global standards for AI in peer review? And should this be led by publishers, cross-industry collaborations, or independent bodies?
Yeah, it's a great question. Simone's already talked about community engagement, and yeah, I'm also a huge advocate of pooling knowledge and resources through strategic collaboration. So when trying to develop an overarching framework that is complex and in a rapidly changing area, I believe cross-industry collaboration will increase the chances of being able to create impactful global standards that will hopefully be widely adopted to guide policy development. Mm-hmm. So in terms of current publisher policies regarding AI in peer review, publishing houses have adopted a variety of approaches, ranging from those that prohibit its use to facilitate any aspect of peer review, right through to the announcement by the AAAI in May that they were launching an AI-powered peer review pilot in which LLM technology would be used to create reviews and to summarize reviewer discussions. So when comparing current AI policies across major publishing houses, what is apparent is that many lack clarity on exactly how this technology can be applied to facilitate peer review, under what circumstances AI assistance is not permitted, and how its use should be disclosed. So there's clearly a need to create global standards for peer review, rather like the STM's recent recommendations for authors for a classification of AI use in academic manuscript preparation. Such standards would serve as a framework that publishing houses would refer to when creating and revising their own policies. And I think the success of such an initiative might be improved if a number of different stakeholders were united in this effort, each bringing their own perspectives, expertise, and challenges to the table. So, for example, publishers would have a key role. They would identify pain points in the review process that might benefit from AI solutions, and they would also be best placed to assess if these could be feasibly developed and implemented. Reviewers would convey their appetite for AI use in peer review and how they would like such solutions applied. Subject matter experts consisting of academics and lawyers and independent bodies who have a deep understanding of the peer review process would advise on various aspects, including privacy concerns and legal adherence and regulatory compliance. And AI tool developers and industry experts would provide technical input, governance considerations, and key insights into how the field is evolving. And then organizations like COPE and EASE and STM and ACSE, they might play a crucial role in gathering these various stakeholders, coalescing insight, and driving the process of creating and refining global standards. And so how these standards were interpreted would need regular monitoring, and successes and shortfalls would inform future iterations. And then such an approach would help to responsibly leverage AI strategies to yield the intended benefits whilst ensuring academic and ethical rigor of the peer review process.
Perfect. Thank you so much for those thoughtful perspectives, Dan. I want to quickly move towards the final thoughts and the wrap-up side, considering the time duration. So, as we come to an end, I would like to invite each one of you, the panelists, to share one key message for the scholarly community on how we should rethink peer review when it comes to integrating artificial intelligence. So, just one thought you would like this audience to carry forward. I want to start with Lucy.
Perfect, thank you. So I think a lot of the current technologies that we look at today on the market for peer review are aimed at helping editors and publishers, and these are very much needed. We need to ensure that published research can be trusted. This seems to have been somewhat of a standard approach towards improving peer review, and it's been great throughout this session to hear from Simone in particular what tools can actually help reviewers so that reviewers and authors have enriched feedback, better conversations, and better research ultimately. So what if an AI tool could thoroughly train reviewers or allow reviewers to submit their feedback in a different format or language? Then each peer review week we have conversations about what peer review feedback covers, what it misses out, what it leaves us vulnerable to. And one of the answers is always just put that work on reviewers who are already usually working for free. So I really wanted to see where we could harness AI tools to do certain checks themselves, and so that reviewers can really focus on greater feedback and conversation between them, authors, reviewers. There's a real huge scope for redefining the feedback itself in peer review and knowing which parts can and cannot be replaced by generative tools in particular. So I'd also say, whilst publishers are considering that, pondering all that, also consider how that revolution in peer review affects the rewards that you're offering, the recognition that you're offering reviewers. Are these rewards still competitive in the current publishing landscape? What more can you do to make the process equitable? And how can we actually support the publication of game-changing research?
Thank you, Lucy. I want to move forward to Hong.
Right. Also, maybe I can give you very, the brief, the message, but the details, the message I want to deliver is going to publish in the Scholar Kitchen, the post this week, maybe on Wednesday, because it's a peer review week, we all know. So the key for me is balance, collaboration, but not substitution. AI should be seen as a smart assistant that handles the routine checks and the surfings in the insights, while human provides the judgment, accountability, and ethical reasoning. This is what the humans can have uniquely. So the future isn't about choosing between the speed or quality, or even between the human and AI. It's about combining the strengths. So if we embedded the transparency, training, and governance from the start, AI can help us, there's no doubt, can help us move from detection towards disclosure, from the opacity to openness, and from the overburdened workflow to the more sustainable and inclusive the system of peer review. So basically, in short, AI can strengthen peer review, but only if we keep the integrity and the trust at the center. And in the future, we will redesign think about it whenever we want to redesign the whole peer review process. We not only consider the human and our machine as center, but we consider the human and the machine AI as the partners. This is the center. So thank you.
Perfect, Hong. So, Simone, how do you want to conclude today's thoughts?
Well, I hope it's already come through in the words today that, I really echo Hong's thoughts that the AI is not a shortcut. You have to keep equal weight on both those sides of the human role. And you can see sort of the publishers already doing that well because the human team is almost growing. It's not a faster speed. It's actually sometimes even longer because you're seeing more of the signals that require that human oversight. So I really agree with that message that it's not sort of who's better, human or AI. It's a collaboration and how we integrate those together. But if there's one thing that I would urge everyone to rethink today, it's the idea that AI is still emerging or, it's experimental because the studies are showing that it's already embedded in the research cycle and it's a minority who aren't using it. So some people are even using it without even realizing. So what we've got at the moment is a community that is using AI, but often invisibly. So there is a role for publishers there in enforcing that is brought to light and that rapid adoption is obviously really exciting, but it carries risks if it's done not visibly. So I mentioned earlier that I'm sort of worried about that creep effect of AI really, ramping up and then us not realizing until it's too late that literature has been polluted with AI content that wasn't, critically assessed by a human person. So I think we can't afford to believe we still have time to think about how to best support that community. That moment's kind of past now. Publishers need to all have available policies, guidance, and be actively seeking engagement with their community on responsible use, seeing how they're using it and making sure they're disclosing it. So in Frontier's stance is kind of the publisher-led is publisher trusted. And so tools like IRA are much easier to monitor when they're in-house. So yeah, that would be my key takeaway for today.
Perfect. Moving to Dan, how would you like to close it?
Wow, there are so many excellent points that have already been raised. But yeah, I think it would be remiss of us as a publishing industry if we didn't recognize that AI-assisted technologies present a tremendous opportunity to revamp the current peer review system and tackle some of the current challenges by integrating innovative AI-based solutions. I'd like to make three brief points. The first is that hybrid peer review is an appealing proposition if used responsibly and with human oversight. Potentially, AI can facilitate numerous aspects of the peer review process. Many have been discussed in this webinar, but each use case does present specific challenges and risk, and they should be recognized and dealt with before being rolled out. Second, it's necessary to develop global standards for AI use in peer review. Ideally, this would take place via a cross-stakeholder collaboration to provide a framework that would guide policy development of publishing houses whilst being sympathetic to their specific needs. And third, whilst AI will increasingly assist peer review, we should also remember that there are many other non-AI dependent strategies that might also improve the process. So such efforts include structured peer review, improved functionality, such as introducing collaborative annotation tools into the process, incentivizing the process to improve recruitment and recognize the effort of peer reviewers, to better target reviewers and expand reviewer pools, and to improve guidance and peer review education, including AI literacy. And so continual monitoring combined with the ability to refine and retest will ensure that benefits of AI can be exploited while safeguarding the integrity of the peer review process. Thank you.
Perfect, Dan. Thank you so much, Lucy, Hong, Simone, Dan, for such informative and quick webinar panel discussion. And I think I save all of us 5 minutes to have a little bit of questions from the audience if we have. I want to take one question from one of the board of directors of ACSE from Dekran. The question is that would it be possible to wondering if AI can be combined with blockchain to capture efficiency but also preserve anonymity? Any one of you would like to take on it? Hong, would you like to take on it? Integrating.
Yeah, I can try, but this is not my the expertise. Blockchain, I did some the study, but not definitely is not expert. So I think the one thing is I can think of is we can use to track. Actually, this blockchain is not only used for the peer review. It could be used for the authorship. Once the who is the first to invent this idea, and then the preprint, and then who is the expand this next. So with blockchain, you can always keep this authorship, this originalities the forever, and then no one can change. So this can be considered as the how can we to measure the outcome in the future. For example, if this some the technology research is is become as the successfully applied in the business and generate the value, and we do the reverse engineer, we trace back to see where this who is invent this first, who is expanded, and who is improved it. So we can clear this. So in this case, all of this the contributors can share some the incentive or something. So this is first is not only for peer review, but for peer review, I think this can be used as if the blockchain can be used. One thing I can think of is can be used with AI to detect whether this is a user identity, the author identity, reviewer identity, to see this reviewer is either as verified, like the ORCID today, the ORCID, the trust marker, all this stuff, and we can use to detect whether this is a fake identity or is a real one. If the real identity, do they have some the unusual publishing behavior, etc., under the associated with this identity, unchanged identity. For example, if this researchers or reviewer has published many papers in different disciplines in the 6 months time, etc. This we have seen before, and also they have always collaborate with some of the reviewers or certain group of reviewers or authors who have also the retractions history, etc. So I think this is the kind of things in my mind I can leverage with blockchain.
Perfect. So before I move to the official wrap up of this panel discussion, I would like to request all of the attendees, if you are comfortable, it's not mandatory, but put on your camera so that we can take a few screenshots of all of the participants joining us today. And then we will move forward towards our closing session. We have such a good participation for this panel discussion coming from the direct publishing community. Oh, thank you. We have like a 4 screens, so just stay with me for a few minutes on count of 2. Smile. All right. Another screen on count of 2. Smile. All right. 2 more screens to go. All right. Perfect. So I want to extend thanks to all of the panelists for joining us today for this important discussion. This time for Peer Review Week, ACSE has put like 3 different panel discussion, and our first focus was publisher panel discussion that we did for today, and 2 more are coming for the next week coming forward. So thank you for the audience for joining us today for celebrating Peer Review Week 2025 with ACSE. What we all heard today from different perspectives, like 4 different publishers and their experiences, it's very much clear that artificial intelligence is neither a silver bullet nor a threat. It's just a tool, one that can things a little bit widen inclusion, strengthen integrity, and make peer review more efficient if used responsibly. So all I want to say is with all of the efforts of AI in peer review, it requires us as publisher, as editors, as reviewers, and I want to add researchers as well to remain vigilant, collaborative, and transparent. On behalf of the Asian Council of Science Editors, I would like to thank you again for being part of this important conversation. We look forward to continuing this dialogue with you, all of you, throughout the peer review week and beyond. Thank you and bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.